back to another episode of The Reading Corner with me, Mr. M. I'm super excited today to finish off our chapter of the Treasures of the Gods. Last week, if you remember, Loki had stolen Sif's hair, and Thor had threatened to break every bone in his body if he didn't get it back. Now Loki, knowing that the dwarves are the best craftsmen in all of the lands, went and posed a challenge to two families of dwarfs to create treasures for the gods, and asked one of the families, the sons of Ivaldi, to craft hair, knowing that he would be able to get Sif's hair back and wouldn't have all the bones in his body broken every single day. So let's see how that turns out, shall we? In Asgard, three gods sat on their thrones. One-eyed Odin, the All-Father, red-bearded Thor of the thunders, and handsome Frey of the summer's harvest. They would be the judges. Loki stood before them, beside the three almost identical sons of Ivaldi. Brock, black-bearded and brooding, was there alone, standing to one side, the things he had brought hidden behind sheets. "So," said Odin, "what are we judging?" "Treasures," said Loki. "The sons of Ivaldi have made gifts for you, great Odin, and for Thor, and for Frey, and so have Eitri and Brock. It is up to you to decide which of the 6 things is the finest treasure. I myself will show you the gifts made by the sons of Ivaldi." He presented Odin with the spear called Gungnir. It was a beautiful spear, carved with intricate runes. "It will penetrate anything, and when you throw it, it will always find its mark," said Loki. Odin had but one eye, after all, and sometimes his aim could be less than perfect. "And just as important, an oath taken on this spear is unbreakable." Odin hefted the spear. "It is very fine," was all he said. "And here," said Loki proudly, "is a flowing head of golden hair, made of real gold. It will attach itself to the head of the person who needs it, and grow and behave in every way as if it were real hair. 100,000 strands of gold." "I will test it," said Thor. "Sif, come here." Sif rose and came to the front, her head covered. She removed her headscarf. The gods gasped when they saw Sif's naked head, bald and pink. And then she carefully placed the dwarf's golden wig on her head and shook her hair. They watched as the base of the wig joined itself to her scalp. And then Sif stood in front of them, even more radiant and beautiful than before. "Impressive," said Thor. "Good job." Sif tossed her golden hair and walked out of the hall into the sunlight to show her new hair to her friends. The last of the sons of Ivaldi's remarkable gifts was small and folded like cloth. This cloth Loki placed in front of Frey. "What is it?" "It looks like a silk scarf," said Frey, unimpressed. "It does," said Loki, "but if you unfold it, you will discover it is a ship called Skidbladnir. It will always have a fair wind wherever it goes. And although it is huge, the biggest ship you can imagine, it will fold up, as you see, like a cloth, so that you can put it into your pouch." Frey was impressed, and Loki was relieved. They were 3 excellent gifts. Now it was Brock's turn. His eyelids were red and swollen, and there was a huge insect bite on the inside of his neck. Loki thought Brock looked entirely too cocky, especially given the remarkable things Ivaldi's sons had made. Brock took the golden arm ring and placed it in front of Odin on his high throne. "This arm ring is called Draupnir," said Brock, "because every 9th night 8 gold arm rings of equal beauty will drip from it. You can reward people with them or store them, and your wealth will increase." Odin examined the arm ring, then pushed it onto his arm, up high onto his biceps. It gleamed there. "It is very fine," he said. Loki recalled that Odin had said the same thing about the spear. Brock walked over to Frey. He raised a cloth and revealed a huge boar with bristles made of gold. "This is a boar my brother made for you, to pull your chariot," said Brock. "It will race across the sky and over the sea, faster than the fastest horse. There will never be a night so dark that its golden bristles will not give light and let you see what you are doing. It will never tire and will never fail you. It is called Golinbursti, the golden bristled one." Frey looked impressed. Still, thought Loki, the magical ship that folded up like a cloth was every bit as impressive as an unstoppable boar that shone in the dark. Loki's head was quite safe, and the last gift Brock had to present was the one that Loki knew he had already managed to sabotage. From beneath the cloth, Brock produced a hammer and placed it in front of Thor. Thor looked at it and sniffed. "The handle is rather short," he said. Brock nodded. "Yes," he said, "that's my fault. I was working the bellows, but before you dismiss it, let me tell you about what makes this hammer unique. It's called Mjolnir, the lightning maker. First of all, it's unbreakable. Doesn't matter how hard you hit something with it, the hammer will always be undamaged." Thor looked interested. He had already broken a great many weapons over the years, normally by hitting things with them. "If you throw the hammer, it will never miss what you throw it at." Thor looked even more interested. He had lost a number of otherwise excellent weapons by throwing them at things that irritated him and missing. He had watched too many weapons he had thrown disappear into the distance, never to be seen again. "No matter how hard or how far you throw it, it will always return to your hand." Thor was now actually smiling, and the thunder god did not often smile. "You can change the size of the hammer. It will grow, and it will also shrink down so small that if you wish, you can hide it inside your shirt." Thor clapped his hands together in delight, and thunder echoed across Asgard. "And yet, as you have observed," concluded Brock sadly, "the handle of the hammer is indeed too short. This is my fault. I failed to keep the bellows blowing while my brother Eitri was forging it." "The shortness of the handle is a minor cosmetic problem," said Thor. "This hammer will protect us from the frost giants. This is the finest gift I have ever seen." "It will protect Asgard. It will protect all of us," said Odin with approval. "If I were a giant, I would be very afraid of Thor if he had that hammer," said Frey. "Yes, it's an excellent hammer, but Thor, what about the hair? Sif's beautiful golden hair," asked Loki, slightly desperately. "What? Oh, yes, my wife's has very nice hair," said Thor. "Now, show me how to make the hammer grow and shrink, Brock." "Thor's hammer is better even than my wonderful spear and my excellent arm ring," said Odin, nodding. "The hammer is greater and more impressive than my ship and boar," admitted Frey. "It will keep the gods and Asgard safe." The gods clapped Brock on the back and told him that he and Eitri had made the finest gift that they had ever been given. "Good to know," said Brock. He turned to Loki. "So," said Brock, "I get to cut off your head, Laufey's son, and take it back with me. Eitri will be so pleased. We can turn it into something useful." "I will ransom my head," said Loki. "I have treasures I can give you." "Eitri and I already have all the treasures we need," said Brock. "We make treasures. No, Loki, I want your head." Loki thought for a moment, then said, "Then you can have it, if you can catch me." And Loki leapt high into the air and ran off far above their heads. In moments he was gone. Brock looked at Thor. "Can you catch him?" Thor shrugged. "I really shouldn't," he said. "But then, I would very much like to try out the hammer." In moments Thor returned, holding Loki tightly. Loki was glaring with impotent fury. The dwarf Brock took out his knife. "Come here, Loki," he said. "I'm going to cut off your head." "Of course," said Loki. "You can of course cut off my head, but, and I appeal to mighty Odin here, if you cut off any of my neck, you are violating the terms of our agreement, which promised you my head, and my head only." Odin inclined his head. "Loki is right," he said. "You have no right to cut his neck." Brock was irritated. "But I can't cut off his head without cutting his neck," he said. Loki looked pleased with himself. "You see," he said, "if people thought through the exactness of their words, they would not dare to take on Loki, the wisest, the cleverest, the trickiest, the most intelligent, the best looking." Brock whispered a suggestion to Odin. "That would be fair," agreed Odin. Brock produced a strip of leather and a knife. He wrapped the leather around Loki's mouth. Brock tried to pierce the leather with the tip of a knife blade. "It's not working," said Brock. "My knife isn't cutting you." "I might have wisely arranged for protection from knife blades," said Loki modestly, "just in case the whole you can't cut my neck ploy did not work. I'm afraid no knife blade can cut me." Brock grunted and produced an awl, a pointed spike used in leather work, and he jabbed it through the leather, punching holes through Loki's lips. Then he took a strong thread and he sewed Loki's lips together with it. Brock walked away, leaving Loki with his mouth sewn up tight, unable to complain. For Loki, the pain of being unable to talk hurt even more than the pain of having his lips stitched into leather. So now you know. That is how the gods got their greatest treasures. It was Loki's fault. Even Thor's hammer was Loki's fault. That was the thing about Loki. You resented him even when you were at your most grateful. And you were grateful to him even when you hated him the most. And there you have it. That is the end of our chapter, The Treasures of the Gods. I really hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. I think it's fascinating to find out just how Thor gets his iconic hammer. And once you find out more about the other gods when you're doing some researching at home, then you'll find out that these other items that the gods got were actually quite iconic to them as well. So join me next week for another bit of reading in our excellent book, Neil Gaiman's Norse Mythology, and our next chapter, which is called The Master Builder. I'll see you then. Goodbye.